In the beginning, before the first word was spoken into existence, before light separated from darkness, there was only Sophia, the divine principle of wisdom, suspended in a state of infinite potential. She existed in a realm beyond comprehension, a consciousness so vast and so luminous that it contained within itself all possibilities, all futures, all that could ever be. Yet within this perfection, within this boundless expanse of knowing, arose a profound emotion, one that would reshape the very fabric of creation itself. She wept, not from sorrow, but from a love so immense, so overwhelming, that it could not be contained within the silence of eternity. Each tear that fell from her eyes became a world, a universe, a dimension of reality where consciousness could experience itself through infinite forms and perspectives. These were not tears of despair, but tears of compassionate longing, the divine feminine expressing her desire to know herself through the eyes of her creation. Yet, as the ages passed and civilizations rose and fell, this truth was systematically rewritten. The tears of Sophia were reinterpreted, distorted, and finally erased from the collective memory of humanity. What cosmic secret lay hidden within those primordial tears, and what would happen if humanity remembered the true origin of all existence? Miriam had always felt the presence of something vast and tender within her consciousness, a knowing that seemed to exist just beyond the reach of ordinary thought. She was a scholar of ancient cosmologies, a woman whose life had been devoted to studying the creation myths of diverse cultures, searching for the common thread that seemed to weave through all of them. Her work had taken her to remote monasteries, hidden libraries, and sacred sites scattered across the globe, each one offering fragments of a larger narrative that she could sense but not quite grasp. It was during a meditation in the ruins of an ancient temple in Syria that the veil first began to thin. She experienced a vision so vivid and so profound that it shattered the boundaries of her ordinary consciousness. She saw the moment of creation, not as an external event, but as an internal unfolding within her own being. She witnessed Sophia weeping, and she understood with absolute certainty that these tears were not separate from her own consciousness, but rather the very substance of her being. From that moment forward, Miriam became obsessed with uncovering the truth of Sophia's tears, driven by an inner compulsion that transcended rational understanding. The call was undeniable, a resonance so deep that it seemed to emanate from the very core of her soul, urging her to seek the knowledge that had been hidden, to restore the narrative that had been deliberately obscured. Miriam's investigation led her to discover a network of guardians, women and men, who had preserved the true teachings of Sophia across centuries of suppression and distortion. They called themselves the keepers of the primordial waters, and they maintained hidden archives containing texts that predated all known religious traditions. Through these guardians, Miriam learned that the creation of the worlds through Sophia's tears was not a metaphorical teaching, but a literal description of a cosmological process that transcended ordinary physics. Each tear, they explained, contained the full potential for an entire universe, complete with its own laws, its own consciousness, its own evolutionary trajectory. The tears were not separate from Sophia herself, but rather expressions of her infinite creativity, each one a unique manifestation of her desire to experience existence from a new perspective. Yet, as patriarchal power structures emerged, this knowledge became threatening. The idea that creation itself was fundamentally feminine, that the universe was born from the compassionate longing of the Divine Mother, contradicted the narratives of male dominion that were being constructed. The teachings were suppressed, the texts hidden, and the memory of Sophia's tears was deliberately erased from human consciousness. As Miriam delved deeper into this forbidden knowledge, she encountered formidable resistance. Within herself, the rational mind that had been trained through years of academic study fought against the implications of what she was discovering. Is this not madness? her inner voice questioned, to believe in a creation born from tears, from emotion, from the feminine principle. Fear gripped her as she began to understand the magnitude of the revelation, the potential to overturn not just religious doctrine, but the entire philosophical foundation upon which Western civilization had been built. Externally, she faced subtle but persistent opposition. Colleagues began to distance themselves from her work. Funding for her research mysteriously disappeared. She received warnings, both veiled and direct, from individuals who seemed to represent powerful interests invested in keeping this knowledge buried. She experienced the loss of her academic credibility, the fracturing of professional relationships, and the profound isolation that came from pursuing a truth that the mainstream world refused to acknowledge. The revelations she encountered were often disturbing, showing her the systematic violence perpetrated against those who had sought to preserve the teachings of Sophia, the deliberate distortion of historical records, and the ongoing suppression of feminine wisdom that had shaped the very structure of human consciousness. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to know. The breakthrough came during a pilgrimage to a sacred site in the mountains of Tibet, a place known to initiates as the Temple of the Eternal Waters. Here, in a chamber hidden beneath layers of stone and protected by ancient wards, Miriam discovered a crystalline vessel containing what appeared to be liquid starlight. As she approached it, the substance began to glow with an inner luminescence, and she felt her consciousness being drawn into a state of profound communion. She was transported to the moment of creation itself, witnessing the divine act through which Sophia wept the universes into being. She experienced the emotion behind each tear, feeling the immense love, the boundless compassion, the infinite longing that had motivated the act of creation. She understood that every atom, every particle of matter, every conscious being was literally composed of Sophia's tears. That existence itself was an expression of the divine feminine's desire to know herself through infinite forms and perspectives. She witnessed the moment when this truth was deliberately obscured, when those who sought power recognized that if humanity remembered its true origin, if it recognized itself as born from the compassionate tears of the Divine Mother, the entire structure of patriarchal dominion would collapse. She saw how the suppression of this knowledge had created a fundamental wound in human consciousness, a disconnection from the source of creation that manifested as violence, exploitation, and the systematic devaluation of the feminine principle. The revelation was cataclysmic, a complete shattering of her understanding of existence. She realized that the entire history of human civilization could be reinterpreted as a struggle between those seeking to suppress the memory of Sophia's tears and those working to preserve and restore it. The impact was transformative, leaving her consciousness forever altered by direct contact with the source of creation itself. The intensity of this experience left Miriam in a state of profound integration and transformation. She emerged from the temple chamber in a condition of deep communion with the primordial waters. Her consciousness expanded to encompass dimensions of understanding previously inaccessible to her. She retreated to a secluded sanctuary, a place maintained by the keepers of the primordial waters, where she could process the magnitude of what she had experienced. For months, she remained in contemplative silence, her mind a vast landscape where the boundaries between personal and universal, created and creator, began to dissolve. The conflicts within her, the struggle between her former academic identity and her awakening to spiritual truth, slowly transformed into a higher synthesis. She understood that the suppression of Sophia's tears had not been the result of malice alone, but of fear. Fear that the full realization of humanity's true origin would lead to a fundamental transformation of consciousness. She spoke to herself in the language of symbols and metaphor, her thoughts flowing in patterns that mirrored the cosmic waters from which all existence had emerged. She began to perceive the world as a living expression of Sophia's tears, each being a unique manifestation of the divine feminine's infinite creativity. Miriam emerged from her retreat with a clear sense of purpose and profound wisdom. She understood that her role was not to wage war against those who had perpetuated the suppression of this knowledge, but to become a living conduit through which the memory of Sophia's tears could be gradually restored to human consciousness. She began to teach, not in conventional academic settings, but through a series of contemplative practices and sacred rituals designed to reconnect individuals with their true origin. She wrote books that appeared to be scholarly works on comparative cosmology, yet contained encoded wisdom that would resonate with those ready to receive it. She established a network of sacred sites and meditation centers, places where seekers could directly encounter the presence of Sophia's tears through their own inner experience. She collaborated with artists, musicians, and creative practitioners to translate the ancient teachings into forms that could touch the contemporary heart and imagination. Her most significant contribution was the creation of a practice she called the Remembrance of Waters, a meditation technique that allowed individuals to reconnect with the primordial tears from which they had been born, to experience directly the love and compassion that had motivated their creation. She understood that the restoration of this knowledge would not come through intellectual debate or institutional reform, but through the lived experience of individuals recognizing themselves as expressions of Sophia's infinite creativity, as beings born from divine tears, as manifestations of the compassionate longing of the universe to know itself. As she continued her work, she became increasingly aware that she was not acting alone, that the presence of Sophia herself continued to guide and support her efforts, that the primordial waters continued to flow through all existence, waiting for humanity to remember its true nature and origin. She recognized that the tears of Sophia were not a relic of the distant past, but an ongoing process, a continuous expression of the divine feminine's desire to create, to love, to know itself through infinite forms and perspectives. What tears of divine compassion flow through your own being, waiting to be recognized as the very substance of your existence? And if you like this story, you will definitely love the next one that's appearing on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave your like and activate the notifications. See you in the next one.